Welcome to Storyflix. In this video we will explain Romance of Their Own. This movie tells the story of a rustic girl who comes to town to live with her mom. Attracted to her pure charm, the most popular guys come up to fight each other. But one of them has a fatal secret not to love her. Their sad love triangle started to complicate. Who will succeed in winning the girl's love? Let's find out in Romance of Their Own. Romance of Their Own begins by showing a girl named Han-kyung who has just arrived in Seoul after a long journey by train from her hometown. After her father died, Han-kyung decided to live with her mother in Seoul. When passing through the station hallway and about to head for the exit, suddenly she was caught in the middle of a fight between students from two high schools, namely Kangshin High School and Sungkwon High School. The leader of the students of Kangshin High School is a young man named Hae-won, while his rival from Sungkwon High School is a young man named Tae-sung. A fight between the high school students is inevitable, and Han-kyung, trapped there alone, struggles to get out of the place with all her might. Han-kyung can finally avoid the fight and arrives at her mother's house, who has remarried to another man and has a daughter named Daryum who is almost the same age as her. Since she is already in Seoul, Han-kyung decides to meet her best friend and also her crush, a young man named Kim Dae-han. However, how surprised is Han-kyung when her best friend turns out to be dating Dae-han. Han-kyung then hides her sadness by pretending to smile in front of the two of them, even though she feels hurt. When Han-kyung gets on the bus to go home, suddenly she gets involved in an unpleasant incident with Hae-won and one of his friends who also boarded the bus. Arriving home, Han-kyung's stepsister, Daryum, looks very surprised that Han-kyung's eyes are puffy like they've been crying. Because Han-kyung plans to go to Daryum's school, which turns out to be Kangshin High School, Daryum tries to comfort a heartbroken Han-kyung by convincing her to approach Hae-won, who turns out to be a popular student who loved by the girls at their school. Even though he is a young delinquent. However, Han-kyung seems to ignore Daryum's words because she just wants to focus on her schooling. As Han-kyung is walking in the pouring rain, they suddenly see a group of people running to avoid the police who have just arrived. A young man suddenly runs towards Han-kyung, takes shelter under her umbrella, and hugs her tightly. The young man turned out to be Tae-sung. Seeing Han-kyung up close, Tae-sung felt that he had met her before. Elsewhere, Daryum, who is taking shelter, then meets Hae-won and his friend who are also taking shelter on the overhang of the shop. Daryum sees Han-kyung, then calls out to her. Hearing Han-kyung's name, Tae-sung confirmed that his full name was Han-kyung and asked if Han-kyung knew him. Because Han-kyung said she didn't know him at all, Hae-won then hugged her and claimed to be her boyfriend. Hearing this, Tae-sung then took Han-kyung away from there, running in the pouring rain. Daryum and Hae-won then chase after them until they find themselves in an alley and hide there. Tae-sung then asks Han-kyung to remember his name and never forget him. After that, he rushed away from there, along with the arrival of Daryum and Hae-won to the place. When Tae-sung took shelter in the payphone box, he seemed to be looking at the photo of a young girl in his wallet. Meanwhile, Han-kyung goes out for a drink with Daryum and Hae-won. Han-kyung, who was so drunk because she was still thinking about Dae-han, was then picked up and brought home by Hae-won. The next day, while at school, Tae-sung comes to Han-kyung and brings pizza. Tae-sung doesn't seem to care, even though the school is also Hae-won's school, who is his rival. Han-kyung was very surprised by Tae-sung's arrival, especially when he defended himself, who was mocked as a loser by the other students. Not long after, Hae-won and his friends come to Han-kyung's class, intending to kick Tae-sung out of there. Before they get into a fight, Tae-sung then goes through the window and jumps from the second floor, then walks leisurely towards the school gate. When she came home from school, Tae-sung was already waiting for Han-kyung in front of the school gate. However, Hae-won doesn't necessarily let Tae-sung take Han-kyung away and orders his minions to gang up on him. Fights are inevitable. Although alone, Tae-sung was able to keep up with Hae-won's henchmen until finally Hae-won decided to intervene directly. However, just as Hae-won and Tae-sung were about to fight, Han-kyung rushed over and stopped them both. She tells Hae-won that she's going out with Tae-sung. Han-kyung and Tae-sung then head to the park, where she treats his wounds. Tae-sung then tries to be romantic with Han-kyung, but Han-kyung thinks he is just playing with her. Arriving at the house, Han-kyung sees Hae-won's scarf that he lent when he took her home some time ago. One day, when Han-kyung calls Tae-sung on a payphone, suddenly Hae-won appears and tells her not to stand in front of him or talk to him anymore. When Han-kyung is about to leave, Hae-won grabs her arm and reveals that he's actually starting to like her. Hae-won then drives Han-kyung home in his car and gives her a few minutes until they arrive at Han-kyung's house to decide whether or not she is willing to be his girlfriend. After that, Hae-won drives his car at high speed. Arriving in front of the house, Han-kyung hurries out of the car and tells Hae-won to drive more carefully and not to speed. Hae-won thinks that Han-kyung is willing to be his girlfriend, then gives her a cell phone to make it easier for them to communicate. Daryum, who finds out that Han-kyung has just been driven home by Hae-won in his car, is even given a cell phone, then feels overjoyed because she thinks her stepsister is dating Hae-won. Daryum then asks Han-kyung to be careful because many girls are after Hae-won, and they always try to intimidate other girls that Hae-won approaches, both mentally and physically. On the other hand, Tae-sung looks so sad when he attended the death procession of his grandmother because all this time he only lived with his grandmother after his parents died. In the following days, Han-kyung tried to call Tae-sung many times. But he still did not pick up the phone. Meanwhile, when Hae-won calls, Han-kyung avoids him as much as possible and doesn't pick up the phone, which really irritates Hae-won. When Han-kyung and Hae-won are out together, they see a young man being ganged up on by a group of thugs, and the young man is none other than Tae-sung. Han-kyung, who could not bear to see Tae-sung beaten, then asks Hae-won to help him. Even though Tae-sung is his rival, Hae-won still obeys Han-kyung's request and beats up the thugs. Han-kyung then takes the injured Tae-sung to his home. Arriving at the house, Tae-sung immediately rushed to hide his family photo so that Han-kyung wouldn't see it. After treating Tae-sung's wound, Han-kyung then told him to rest while she would make food for him. However, after finishing cooking, Tae-sung was already asleep. Han-kyung then wrote a message to Tae-sung before leaving his house. But she accidentally reads the letter Tae-sung wrote to his father, the contents of which are so touching that it makes her feel touched. The next day, Han-kyung goes to Hae-won's house and apologizes to him for involving Hae-won in Tae-sung's troubles so badly. Han-kyung then receives a call from Tae-sung asking her to meet him somewhere. Since Hae-won was listening to their conversation, he insisted on joining. Hae-won and Tae-sung then confront each other, where they insult each other and assume that Han-kyung is their girlfriend. Meanwhile, Han-kyung is there, trying to persuade the two not to fight and saying that she can't make a choice between Hae-won and Tae-sung or the other boys because right now she just wants to focus on her study. Despite saying that, it seems that Han-kyung is secretly starting to like Hae-won, so she decides to go after him and leave Tae-sung. The next day, Tae-sung goes for a walk to the beach because his late grandmother often took him to the beach when he was little. Tae-sung recalled the past, where he had met his stepsister a few years ago who came to see him with their father. After that, Han-kyung, who was worried about Tae-sung, then sent a message to him, but there was no response. Han-kyung finds out that Hae-won is going somewhere with his friends. When Han-kyung asks him where he's going and if she can come, Hae-won quickly forbids her because the place isn't good for her. A curious Han-kyung finally finds out that Hae-won and his friends will have fun at a nightclub. She decides to come to the nightclub. That night, Han-kyung visits the nightclub and surprises Hae-won and his friends with her tacky makeup. While Han-kyung is in the bathroom, a man tries to harass her. Luckily, Hae-won immediately comes to her rescue and beats up the man. Han-kyung bursts into tears and tells Hae-won that she just wants to come there and look beautiful in front of him. Hearing this, Hae-won then took Han-kyung and kissed her in front of his friends. Han-kyung visits Tae-sung's house the next day, but no one is there. Han-kyung is very surprised when she sees the family photo that Tae-sung had hidden yesterday, which is a photo of her when she was little with her father. It turns out that Tae-sung is Han-kyung's stepbrother. Han-kyung rushes home and asks her mother about Tae-sung, but she refuses to talk further. Han-kyung then calls Tae-sung and tells him that she went to his house yesterday and saw their family photo. Hearing this, Tae-sung rushed to meet Han-kyung. However, due to driving at high speed, he has an accident. Han-kyung rushed to the hospital to see Tae-sung. That night, Han-kyung tries to persuade Daryum to accompany her to visit Tae-sung at the hospital, but she refuses. On the other hand, Tae-sung is told by his doctor that he has a kidney blockage and must be operated on immediately to avoid developing fatal complications. It turned out that the disease was also suffered by his late mother and grandmother before they both died. Han-kyung brings her entire family, including her mother and grandmother, to visit Tae-sung the next day. Hae-won and Tae-sung also come there, though they seem forced. After Tae-sung recovered and was allowed to go home, they all then went to the graves of Han-kyung and Tae-sung's father. Han-kyung's grandmother then suggests Tae-sung move to Australia and live with her because he now lives alone. But Tae-sung refuses and still wants to stay near Han-kyung. Meanwhile, Hae-won sees Tae-sung and Han-kyung's closeness and feels jealous, even though he knows that Tae-sung is Han-kyung's stepbrother. Hae-won then gets a call from his friend who tells him that someone is looking for him regarding the beating incident at the nightclub some time ago. The next day, a student named Lee Bo-young approaches Han-kyung and says that she wants to be friends with her. However, Han-kyung's friends then expel her from their class because they think Bo-young has bad intentions towards Han-kyung. One night, Tae-sung expresses his love for Han-kyung, even though the two are siblings. Hearing this, Han-kyung is speechless and pensive at the thought of her stepbrother falling in love with her. She then bursts into tears and cries in Hae-won's arms. On the other hand, Tae-sung looks sad and frustrated because he fell in love with a girl he couldn't possibly have forever. The next day, when Han-kyung and Hae-won are hanging out together, they see Bo-young being bullied by a group of delinquents. Han-kyung then asked Hae-won to help Bo-young, but Bo-young instead took advantage of this to approach Hae-won. A few days later, Tae-sung calls Han-kyung and invites her to take a photo with Tae-sung and her little brother. After that, they go to the amusement park to have fun, where Tae-sung then recalls all the moments he had with Han-kyung. When Han-kyung and Tae-sung were at a karaoke place, they accidentally crossed paths with Hae-won and Bo-young, where the situation between them instantly heated up and the two young men got into a fight. When Bo-young confronts Tae-sung, she acts as if she knows him, even though Tae-sung doesn't know her at all. The next day at school, Bo-young tells Han-kyung that Tae-sung ordered her to ruin Han-kyung and Hae-won's romance. Hearing this, Han-kyung, who couldn't believe that Tae-sung would act like that, suddenly grabbed Bo-young by the collar and pushed her against the wall. However, when Hae-won arrives, Bo-young plays the victim and pretends to pass out. Han-kyung tries to explain to Hae-won that she didn't bully Bo-young, but Hae-won doesn't believe her and walks away. Tae-sung, already aware of Bo-young's ruse, then goes to her and throws a tantrum for daring to interfere with Han-kyung and Hae-won's relationship. Han-kyung then goes to Tae-sung and asks if he knows Bo-young. Even though Tae-sung has denied that he doesn't know Bo-young, Bo-young has cunningly framed Tae-sung so that he seems to have lied that he doesn't know Bo-young. Han-kyung, who knows this, then begins to doubt whether Tae-sung is worthy of trust and then leaves him. After that, Tae-sung is approached by a gang of thugs from the men who tried to harass Han-kyung some time ago, where they then kidnap Tae-sung to take revenge on Hae-won. Knowing that Tae-sung had been kidnapped, even though he was not involved in the beating incident, Hae-won rushed to save him. After freeing Tae-sung, Hae-won and Tae-sung then work together to beat the thugs and manage to beat them all. Tae-sung then asks Hae-won about Bo-young and explains that he doesn't know her at all. Tae-sung then says he will go far and asks him to always take care of Han-kyung if he is not by her side. It turns out that all this time, Bo-young had conspired with one of the students who liked Hae-won to ruin Hae-won and Han-kyung's relationship. The two of them then bully Han-kyung, but the action is soon noticed by Hae-won and Tae-sung, who immediately come to Han-kyung's rescue. Hae-won then rushes to take Han-kyung to the airport to meet Tae-sung, who is about to leave for Australia and move there. However, they arrive late at the airport, so they don't have time to meet Tae-sung, making Han-kyung cry in frustration because she feels so sorry for Tae-sung. Long story short, Tae-sung has moved to Australia and seems to be enjoying his life there. Every now and then, he uploads his activities while in Australia to his personal blog so Han-kyung can know that he's okay. Over the phone, Han-kyung expresses her longing for Tae-sung and looks forward to his return. However, Tae-sung says that he is fine and then hangs up. In fact, he was in Australia because he was about to undergo kidney surgery. But because the complications are quite severe, the doctor says that the chances of Tae-sung surviving after the surgery are 50-50. At the hospital, Tae-sung befriends a blind woman where he intends to donate his eyes to her if he dies after undergoing surgery. Tae-sung then tells the woman to look at Han-kyung, who is smiling happily if she can see using the eye he donated. Before entering the operating room, Tae-sung also tells Han-kyung's grandmother to keep everything from Han-kyung because he doesn't want to make her sad. Han-kyung, who learned about Tae-sung's surgery from the blind woman, could only cry in frustration because Tae-sung had kept his illness a secret from her and endured the suffering and pain alone. Heiwan, who also heard this, couldn't hold back his tears because as time went on, the two of them grew closer like brothers. Tae-sung finally died due to severe complications. Han-kyung and the others then head to the beach, where they mourn Tae-sung's death with tears in their eyes and full of regret. The film ends by showing a videotape that Tae-sung made before his death. He has not had time to finish what he wanted to convey to Han-kyung because the camera battery suddenly ran out. Through this film, we can learn about Tae-sung and Hae-won's friendship, which began with rivalry, but over time, they can become friends, even help each other, and become closer like brothers.